Hey y'all, this is Allison hanging out in my space to craft, and I have these scraps left over from the Celebrate page that I just completed. They're so beautiful, and I thought, well, let's do sort of a woven pattern. These papers are from scrapbook.com, a Blossom paper pad. They were all 6x8. Here, because this is not the exact size, I'm just marking it instead of measuring it to get sort of equal border around it. And I'm going to take my scraps and then I'm going to cut about 1/2 inch strips. I'm just using a line on my cutter that I can line it up with to get even. I'm just doing it visually, but I think it's 1/2 inch. But you can just do 1/2 inch strips. Now, unfortunately, I did get 3 out of that one. I'm only going to be able to get 2 out of these thinner strips. They're longer, but they're thinner, and so the second one I had was way too thin. So I'm going to have to figure that out in a minute. I'm going to cut a little bit of length off of this one, just so it fits in my personal trimmer here. And using the same mark. So I'm going to have 3 horizontal strips and 3 vertical strips, essentially. And I just picked the widest of the 3rd strip. Now, I made a mistake here. I didn't ink them first, and I had intended to ink them. So after I get the basics together, I pull it all apart and ink them. Thank goodness I was using repositionable adhesive. I knew I wanted to do that because I wanted to be able to move the pieces around a bit. But I ended up having to basically take the whole thing apart. So do as I say, not as I do. So if you plan to ink these, ink the strips before you start. I had thought about it before I started, and then I just started creating and forgot all about the inking. All right, so here I'm just trying to position this one, and I end up not, this is the thicker one, so I want to put the thin one on in the middle. I'm hoping that maybe it won't notice as much. And then I'm just trying to make sure that there's a little bit of contrast at the woven part. So if it's all too orange, the weave doesn't show up as much, if that makes sense. So here I'm going to get to this point and say, oh, let's ink. So that's the reason I sped up this video just to 2 times. I only spent 20 minutes on the card, and that was with the, I'll call it error, with the erroneous ordering of tasks. Let's put it that way. So I'm just alternating over under and doing a weave pattern for each of the items, each of the strips. And honestly, you could do this with different papers. These are all from the same paper, but if you had different papers, this might look really pretty too. But I imagined just doing this L and then putting the sentiment up in the empty corner and then incorporating one of the florals that I have. So a pretty simple card, but it's pretty high impact, and it's such a great use of scraps. So here we go. I'm almost finished. Last one. So I'm using the repositionable adhesive, but then I'm going to go back in and glue down the ends so that I'm sure it's secure. But I knew I wanted to be able to adjust things. Just to make sure everything's well spaced. So each of these strips is a little bit longer than the card. So now that I'm close to done, I'm just going to use my personal trimmer. Sorry, I have to do a little surgery on my glue bottle here. All right, so I did just cut out some of the struggle with the glue bottle, and I apologize, my dogs are finding lots of things to bark about, so I'm having to restart my audio several times. That's what I get for doing it at 5 p.m. when cars are going by. So once I get this glued down, I can use my personal trimmer to get nice even edges. I like doing this, and you can see I'm using my finger just to make sure it's lined up, and I'm not going to cut any of the card off because I know my card is the right size. There is another strategy to make the card slightly bigger than you need it, and then you can trim it off. That's especially effective if you're doing like a full quilting look or something like that, and then it gives you clean edges. But I was able to get clean edges this way. So I'm looking at these two different florals. They're from Tim Holtz, and I couldn't decide which one I liked. This one honestly was just a little too big. If I put it on the weave, it was covering up all of the weave, and that was kind of the point of this technique, so I didn't want to ruin it. So I'm going to go off and find a die, a stitched square die I think will work best for this. This is just an embossed happy birthday in gold that I had sitting in my bin, and I'm really happy with it. It nestles in there pretty well, and I'm going to glue it straight down and then pop up the florals. If you notice, I forgot to ink these florals before I put them down, but I did do it after I videotaped. I realized my mistake. So again, real world scrapbooking, learn from my mistakes. Since there's a little more space at the bottom of this sentiment, that's where I'm going to place the florals to sort of cover up that white space at the bottom. And I think that will look really nice. And popping it up makes it fit really nicely on there. So we're just going to glue this panel down and then add a little bit of bling with some Concord and Ninth little gold not gems, they're not faceted, just little dots. And I think those look nice. So please give this video a thumbs up. It was a quick card, but I think super cute and effective. And please come back to My Space to Craft for more content. We've got more stuff coming up, and October's going to be super busy.